Alright guys, we've got a week until the car needs to be up and running for the first startup, and it currently looks like this, which is not great really, is it? And the interior isn't looking much better either. So yeah, we're going to crack on with the fuel stuff today. I should point out, when I say in a week it needs to be up and running, I mean literally just up and running. Like, it doesn't need to be anywhere near finished really. We've got another like 2 or 3 weeks before it needs to actually be like done, which is still a pretty short time to be fair. But it needs to be actually able to run and just take it for a quick spin around the block and make sure nothing leaks basically, because then it's going to go get mapped a week after that. This can stay looking a mess really. As long as it runs, we can get a seat in and you can drive it. That's kind of just the goal for in basically 6 days time. The manifolds are still away getting coated at the moment, so I can't put any of the turbos in or anything like that. Can't do any of that stuff. So I'm focusing on everything else, like the fuel system, the catch can setup, the battery box mount, stuff like that. Things that don't require the turbos or the manifolds or the intake piping to be in place. So with that said, let's start tackling some fuel stuff. Alright guys, you asked for it. He's back. Bald Yoda returns. Okay, nobody asked for it actually, did they? Let's be honest. But we've got to put the fuel cell and everything in here, and amongst all the mess in here, we've got fuel tank, swirl pot, and some other stuff, which we've got to get in the back of here. Now, Bald Yoda reckons the best way to do that would be to just mount them on some brackets, because the floor, you can't really see at the moment, but the floor in here is really awkward to actually mount stuff on, because it's all ridged and there's bolts everywhere and all sorts of shit. So, what we're thinking, or what Bald Yoda was thinking, was make some little brackets to go on like the bottom of the fuel tank and the bottom of the fuel pumps and the swirl pot. Whereas what I'm saying is we'll just make a sheet of aluminium that covers the whole floor and then just bolt everything to that. Which is what we've decided to do in the end, or what I've decided to do. I overruled Bald Yoda, sorry. We're making this rough shape to cut out, and then we're going to cut it out and then get mounting stuff. Right, Bald Yoda's been hard at work while I've been doing other stuff. Look what he's created. I mean, I did the terrible welding, obviously, but yeah, I don't mean the welding on the swirl pot, by the way. That was good welding by these guys. This is my welding. But yeah, we've planned everything out. We've cut this thing out. I think it's a lot better than a bracket. Don't you agree? Well, debatable, isn't it? Debatable, but I think it's turned out looking pretty good. It's not quite done yet, but oh, look how shiny it is. You can even see the reflection of the expensive AN fittings. Oof. So you get twice as much for your money, basically. We need to get one more fitting, I think, don't I, to make this all work, but we're pretty much there, aren't we? I'll show you what I've been doing as well. Right, I've been trying to sort out all those stuff in the engine bay, but also running the fuel lines, which go over the rear subframe. Come around here, they're not all pinned in place yet, but you get the idea of where they're going. I've been putting all these P-clips in, which has been a pain because they kind of interfere with stuff on the other side in the cabin, but whatever, they've got to go where they've got to go. Also making them fit around the gearbox has been interesting. But yeah, they're getting there, so that's kind of roughly where that's going to go up to one of the quick disconnect fittings, which I'll show you in a sec. Oh, and the reason that they're going up and over the gearbox now, as opposed to the factory lines, which come like down here as standard and then around there, is because we've now got a turbo right here, and the fuel line literally has to run. It was basically getting in the way of where the turbo was going to be for a start, so that was an issue. But also, we don't want the fuel lines so close to something so hot as the turbo and the manifold. So yeah, done them over the gearbox. I have seen some aftermarket kits that do the same thing, like bring it over the gearbox, so I know it should be fine. I'm going to put a heat sleeve on all this stuff as well, so hopefully it'll be okay, but it's just figuring out the actual routing to make sure it doesn't hit the gearbox or the prop or anything like that. So yeah, these quick disconnect fittings, let me grab one of them. Right, I've recruited Bald Yoda to demonstrate this because you can't operate them with one hand because they're quite stiff, so if you push it in and twist it, disconnects, and then you've got a completely dry disconnect system. Ta-da! And it just means then that when we do take the engine out of the car or stuff in the future, you can just literally disconnect that. You don't even need any tools, and then you can just take the engine out. Obviously, there's a lot more to do other than that, but I mean, for fuel line side of things. Right, Bald Yoda's got everything kind of marked up and in place, and now he wants to dimple dye it all, which I think is very unnecessary. I mean, you kind of agree it's very unnecessary, don't you? So unnecessary. Because it's kind of flimsy, as you can tell, because it's only 2mm thick aluminium, it's kind of flimsy. There will be some spaces on the bottom to help strengthen it and support it, but you reckon dimple dye will add a bit more strength? Yeah. I'm not so sure it will. I thought dimple dye just added strength back to the hole that you've cut out to save weight. I didn't think it added strength compared to just having no holes. Yeah. Maybe? We're going to do a flimsiness test before and after, okay? There you go, we'll come back. Also, while I wasn't looking, he signed my car, so that's nice of him. Right, dimple dyes are all done. So now we're going to do the flimsy test again. Still flimsy. Who knew? Bald Yoda reckons it's stiffer, but I don't know. I'm not sold. But anyway, yeah, it's done. We got very close, as usual with everything. We've not got a lot of room. We've got to drill these holes a little bit larger for the fittings to come out. They're going to go to the fuel rails. But yeah, I'll show you when it's all in and actually in the car, and then you can kind of get an idea of where everything sits. Alright, it's all coming together in the car. Still got a lot of hoses to make. I feel like you guys are probably pretty bored of seeing me make hoses, but it's probably better than just this entire video being me talking and nothing else. So I will film some of them. You can barely see the dimple dies that Bald Yoda spent a while doing, unless you like lean over the boot of the car, but they're there. We know they're there. They're not doing anything, but they're there. We're pretty much good to go and just start making all the hoses. I've still got to make some things to actually clamp this down, because you can tell that sort of rattles around a bit. I mean, that's mostly the fuel tank, but the whole thing does rattle around a bit. So I need to make some sort of spaces underneath it and then drill and bolt them through into the main floor. But yeah, we'll do that after we've made all the hoses up. Alright guys, this is where we're at the moment. Made most of the hoses, we've got pretty much everything done. The only thing that's not done is I need to secure these bulkhead fittings down here properly. At the moment, I've just cut a little section out in there, but the fittings that I was going to use, these 90-degree fittings, they don't really reach properly now. Or, well, they do, but it rubs on the cross member there. So yeah, they don't reach now that the fake floor is in, basically because this is quite a bit higher than the old floor. So I think I'm going to have to get some different fittings. Unfortunately, I've run out of the ones that I need, which is these 45-degree ones. So yeah, I'll have to order some more, which is not great because we've only got 4 days until this needs to be running now. So waiting for stuff to turn up is not ideal. Speaking of wasting time and not being ideal, I've just wasted a load of time changing a load of wiring and stuff, because basically this is the wiring for the stock fuel pump, that yellow and black wire there powers the fuel pump, and I was going to just use that to run my fuel pump. Also, I'll apologise for the mess in here, obviously work in progress. But yeah, I was going to just use that one wire to run mine, but now that we've got 2 fuel pumps, because we've got the lift pump going into the swirl tank and then the swirl tank feeding the rails, now that we've got that, we need another power supply for the second pump, and that one draws a bit more current as well than the other one. And basically, long story short, I went down a bit of a rabbit hole of trying to sort out loads of the wiring stuff that needs to get done before that can happen, and then I also need to make a mount for the battery back here somewhere. So yeah, I've just started doing a few things, trimming this down to the right length, mounted this little power distribution pole up here that's going to have a load of stuff go to it because the master kill switch is going to be in there that everything needs to run through. Lots of stuff that kind of has to be done beforehand. Also this fuse box thing and relay board that I made ages ago, which I don't know if I ever actually showed in a video, but yeah, that got caned in all the fire extinguisher stuff, so I've had to spend ages cleaning all that off and then change some of the wiring on that. And yeah, it's just been a massive time sink really. I've spent like 3 hours just doing all this shit and I haven't really achieved anything. So yeah, that's what we needed, and we've only got 4 days left. So yeah, I'm going to carry on, Don't know exactly what I'm going to do next. Probably just finish off this wiring stuff because, like I say, that needs to be done for the fuel pumps to work, and we definitely need them for the car to run. Okay, so I started doing some of the wiring. Got the grounds done and tapped into the power line for the old fuel pump. And what I noticed while I was doing it, for some reason, I noticed that this fuel filter was in the wrong place. It was over here, and we'd like built the whole thing around it being over here. But it actually wants to be there. So what I've done to kind of make it work and not have to redo the whole thing is make the world's shortest hose here to join those two together. And then I'm just going to use a male-to-male adapter to join these two together, and then just make a hose between there and there. And then the whole thing kind of carries on exactly as it was. I know some people will say, oh, but you're adding an extra connection by having that instead of just being one continuous hose all the way through. But at the end of the day, these are all connections. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's the same thing that you're relying on to seal it. It's just AN fittings. Like, it's not the end of the world adding an extra one. There's hundreds of connections if you look at all the fuel system and coolant lines and oil lines, and you don't complain about any of them. So why would you complain about an extra one in the middle of a line? That's kind of my feelings on it. As long as you do it properly, do it uptight, it's not going to leak, is it? But anyway, that's enough moaning about people moaning. But yeah, it's 2 o'clock in the morning again. I don't know why this keeps happening. Well, no, I do know why this keeps happening, because I picked a stupid project to do and a fairly short deadline. I mean, it wasn't that short of a deadline, was it? I had like 5 months, and somehow we're coming down to the last few days of whether it's going to be ready or not. And I'm killing myself trying to actually get it done in time. Like I say, today just feels like I've got nothing done, even though I've been here for 14 or 15 hours, I think. Just stuff just takes forever. I haven't been like sat around doing nothing. I've been doing stuff the whole time. It just takes forever. Me and Bald Yoda were saying that yesterday. Like, he was doing stuff the entire time he was here. He was here for like 6-7 hours or something. And like, all we got done was made a flat shelf with a couple of spacers on it. Like, it's crazy how much time stuff takes. But yeah, we've now got 4 days, or probably 3 days now. I don't know, it depends. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what day we're on now. But yeah, we've not got a lot of time. Like, I've spent today just doing wiring and random shit and not really got anywhere. I've already said that, but whatever. I'm tired. So yeah, I've got tomorrow and then 2 more days to do the catch can, which, does that need to be done before the car can run? Probably not. But it would be nice just in case any like oil vapor and shit comes out in the engine bay and sets fire to stuff. Don't want to do that again. So yeah, I do kind of want to get that done beforehand, just to like keep a lid on any fumes and vapors coming out of the crankcase. And then we've got to make the coolant expansion tank still. We've got to make the battery box, or at least just part of it, like the bit that's going to hold the battery down, so that we can at least just test drive it without the battery flying all over the place. And what else we've got to make? Something else, some other fairly big thing, I think. So yeah, a lot of stuff, considering all these tiny jobs have taken me an entire day or more. I'm quite worried about like 3 or 4 big jobs. Well, not that big, but bigger than what I've been doing today. So yeah, I'm going to shut up now. We'll cut to tomorrow, I guess, when I'll be back here. Maybe I'll just sleep here. No, it's very messy. I don't think there's anyone to sleep here. But yeah, we'll cut to tomorrow when I'm hopefully a bit more with it, a bit more awake, and see if we can get some stuff actually done. Alright guys, I'm a little bit more awake now. Not much, to be honest, because didn't get much sleep, but we're starting back on the car. I think we're going to move on from fuel stuff because I'm waiting for a couple of fittings to turn up. I think I probably mentioned that yesterday in my tired ramble. But yeah, I need to make the coolant expansion tank, so that's the next job. It's going to fit in this space here. So this spot here where the battery used to be. Obviously we've got the swirl pot here, but we're also going to make an expansion tank that's going to sit about here, and that will feed into there. Me and Luke also made this brake line, which I had to chop because it went on the secondary firewall. Obviously we got rid of that, so I had to mount and make a new brake line. This goes through there. But yeah, that's the job for today, is to make the expansion tank. Alright, I've not filmed much as usual, but this is what I've got so far. Obviously not finished, but yeah, just started welding the sides up and the bottom. It's not particularly big because it has to fit in that small space and leave room for a bracket and leave room for the bung on the side where that hose is going to come in. So yeah, it's not very big. I've worked out the dimensions, and this holds about 1.6 litres, so it's not too bad. Like, for an expansion tank, it'll probably do the job. I've not finished the welding, by the way, and it looks absolute ass at the moment because I've not done all the corners, but I'll do that when the whole thing is together, because then there's a bit more material to soak up the heat, because the corners are the bits that like to blow away all the time. But yeah, got to weld this thing on, so let's do that. Is that in the middle? What do you think? I'm going to say roughly, whatever, enough. It's enough in the middle. We haven't got time to be picky, unfortunately. That's one thing I was going to explain yesterday, actually, is that half the reason things are taking too long is because I'm trying to do them as well as possible. Like, I'm trying to do them to the best of my ability, which is not particularly good. Don't get me wrong, like, my ability is not particularly good, but yeah, there's so much stuff where, because the car is like all in bits because the engine's out and the seats and interior and everything's out, like, I could redo a lot of the wiring and things like that and make everything a lot nicer, but I just haven't got time now, and it's really annoying because I want to make things nice and do things properly, because I know I won't get around to doing them once everything's back together, but we haven't got time. So it's getting kind of frustrating because I end up spending way too long doing, like, making a little bracket or something and making it look nice and rounding the corners and painting it and shit like that, when I need to just get it on the car and just get it done and worry about that shit later. But yeah, finding the balance at the moment is proving kind of tricky. But yeah, I think we'll just give up on getting this absolutely perfect and just get it on. Right, I've done a few other bits since you guys last saw. Welded these bungs on the side here, which are going to be for the header tank to flow into, and then one of them is an overflow, just in case the thing ever completely fills up. I don't want it to pour out of the screw-on cap because it's right near a load of wiring, so if it does ever fill up, it'll overflow out and we'll route the hose somewhere nice. But yeah, I've just got to weld this last side on, and then we're pretty much done. I was going to make a sight glass, by the way, so that you can actually see how full it is, but with the height of it and with the stuff that I've got that I was going to make the sight glass out of, the sight glass would end up being tiny and you'd only really see, like, if it's somewhere in the middle, so it's not going to be that much use. I think I'll save those bits for something else. To be honest, I'd rather remake this in the future and do a better job of it all, but for now it just needs to be a box that can contain some fluid, so let's get that done. We're pretty much done with this. It's boiling hot still at the moment, so I can't really pick it up and show you properly, but you get the idea. It's a tank, it has a lid, it has 2 ports on it. Pretty much it. Somehow that's taken like 4 hours to make or something. What time are we on? 5 o'clock. It's taken quite a while. So yeah, we'll let that cool down and then we'll start making the bracket for it. Right, I've made one half of the bracket, which is on the car. I'll show you in a sec. This is the other half. Just going to weld this little gusset in there, give it a bit more strength, and then we're good to go. These are not going to be pretty welds, they're just going to be functional welds, so don't judge me. Fuck! I got carried away, melted the gusset. Shit. That's gonna look a bit trash. Oh well. Whatever. It'll still be strong enough. If you can see. Can you see that? Probably not, but the big hole missing out of that bit. The other side went okay, but that bit, not so good. But yeah, that's probably going to be enough. It looks an absolute mess. It's really annoying because that was the last part of it to do, and that's the bit that's gone wrong, but whatever, you can't really see that once it's in the car anyway, so not the end of the world. So this is the final thing. The back is horrific, like I said, because of those problems that we just had, but ignore that, and yeah, you get a rough idea of what we've got. Obviously I could clean it up to wipe off some of the drawings and stuff as I was making it, but for now it will do. And this is the other part of the bracket that I've made already. Got a couple of riv nuts in there, and then basically this will bolt in to that. And as long as I haven't seriously fucked something up while I was welding, it should all fit nicely. So let's put it in place and see. So there we go, it's in. It's not as sturdy as I hoped it would be, to be honest, with such a big bracket. Like, compared to the swirl part, I mean, these bolts aren't done up tight at the moment, so it's really wobbly, but it's got a fair bit of flex even when they are tight, but I assume that was just because they're pretty small brackets and very small sort of contact patch. But with this one I made a way bigger bracket and I put gussets on both sides of it, and it's still a bit, it's not much I guess, but it's just enough for it to not sort of feel solid, but I guess that's just due to the sort of length and size of it compared to the bracket still. But yeah, overall it's turned out alright. The only bit, like I say, that's absolute dog shit is the back, but you can't see that, so whatever. So that's one job down, one of the sort of critical jobs before the car can be up and running. What I'm going to do next I think is put the engine back in, measure up for the catch can, and make sure all the fuel lines and stuff are in the right place and the gearbox not hitting them. So yeah, let's get on with that. Right, I got the engine back in, started to put some stuff back on, got the gearbox back on. That took absolutely ages. That was such a pain in the ass to get the gearbox on. Like sometimes it goes on fairly easy, sometimes it's just a pain in the ass, and this was one of those times. It took about an hour I would say. It felt like an hour, it was probably actually like half an hour, but whatever. I'm currently doing some weird stuff with oil lines because the original plan was to have them both kind of go over this side and down through there, but that's not going to work now for various reasons. I won't bore you with the details, but basically one of them needs to come this way now. And this one that comes this side has got to make a really tight turn, and it ends up rubbing on either this or this, depending on which way you route it. So what I'm doing is using a fitting to make that tight turn, because obviously they can turn a lot tighter than the hose can. Now I know it's not ideal because you're adding an extra connection, but as I said before, as long as you do everything up properly, it shouldn't really be an issue, should it? It's no different to having a connection there. So yeah, we're going to run it along here under this radiator support thing, which keeps it nice and out of the way because this is like a pretty low point of the car, so we don't want it any lower than this. But yeah, this has turned out to be a nice sort of tray for this to run along under. I can cable tie it to this, and then it can go into the oil filler sandwich plate down there. So yeah, it's all worked out nicely. You might also notice that I've painted some stuff while I was waiting for some things to cool down from welding. Just slap some paint on things. It's not great, like you can see it's already coming off in places there, but it'll do. It looks a bit better than it did before. I might get stuff powder coated at some point, but for now at least it looks a little bit more presentable. So yeah, I'm going to carry on making lines. It's like 1:30 in the morning again, so yeah, I'm just going to get this done, then go home and then carry on tomorrow. So I got that hose made last night before I went home. You can see it runs under there like I showed before, and yeah, it will be cable tied to make it a little bit neater and keep it up there, but yeah, it's not turned out too bad to be honest. Like, say that's kind of a lot nicer than if you'd done it with a hose and it had to turn such a tight bend there. So you can get a spanner in around here to do these things up, which is pretty convenient. Again, not really intentional, but it's worked out quite nicely. So yeah, that is all done. Okay, now that fuel filter is actually in the right place and I've made all the lines to make that work, we are looking good. I've also started on the wiring, like I said. Tried to make it as neat as I can, ground it up here, run some cables down there. They're going to go through because there's going to be a firewall here, so they're going to go through like a bulkhead fitting here, which is why I've not put the ends on them yet. But yeah, I'll explain the sort of relay setup that we've got going on as well. So like I said originally, the stock fuel pump wiring is here. I've teed off that, basically spliced into that, which is what this is. Again, I've tried to make it all as neat as I can and do a proper job of it, which I really shouldn't be doing because I haven't got time for that, but whatever. So yeah, it goes off there and runs to one of the fuel pumps. Then it also splices off down here, kind of messy around there, but goes into this relay, which I probably will move at some point and have like a proper relay board or whatever, but for the sake of just getting things done, I've just mounted it up here, which, yeah, that's got one wire for the ground. The signal line that comes in is basically this one that I was talking about, so when this gets power, that will allow the relay to allow power through, basically, which means that if we follow all this mess back, we've got a wire coming off basically the main battery essentially, that comes down here, goes into the relay, and then once that trips, like I say, it can then allow power to go out through the other wire, which goes off up there and runs the other fuel pump. Hope that made sense. Basically it's just a cable going from the battery to the fuel pump, but it'll only actually activate when this line gets power, which is when the stock fuel pump gets power. So essentially we're just making it so that when the stock fuel pump would have turned on, the new fuel pumps turn on as well. That would have been a much easier way of saying all that, wouldn't it? Whatever. Also, these 45-degree fittings turned up, which works a lot better than those 90-degree ones now. So yeah, I've got them on both ends, and we're all good to go. So that's pretty much it for fuel. I have got to wait until I take the gearbox off again to actually run the fuel lines for the final time down there, because you can't really put them on while the gearbox is on. But that's not a big issue. Like with the quick disconnect things, you shouldn't really ever need to take. Shouldn't really ever need to take these fittings off again. So fittings, lines, whatever. So yeah, we're pretty much done for fuel stuff now. Basically go down to pick up the manifolds in 2 days time, and yeah, then we try and start it up. So still got lots to do over the next 2 days, so there'll be another video soon, I'm sure, and I'll see you there.